How's it going, everyone? Hope you're having a good day. So today we got a very, very, very interesting story. Actually, we got two stories, but the first story is about... I get the most interesting submissions. By the way, submit stuff to my Instagram. It's in the description. It's of a emo vampire kid tries to eat some subscriber in class. You know what? I'm not going to try and explain it. I'm not going to go through the mental gymnastics to try and justify such a title. We're just going to go straight into the story. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this Alex. And in Alex's class, it doesn't really matter what the class is. We can just say it's a history class. In this class, there's an emo vampire kid. And normally I would give him a shorthand name, but I just think that calling someone emo vampire kid is so funny. I'm just gonna say emo vampire kid every single time this kid's name comes up. So anyways, Alex and his friends one day were sitting behind the emo vampire kid. And when I mean emo vampire kid, I mean, first of all, he was dressing in the all black aesthetic, had like he was like a mix of both, but it was like emphasis on the vampire. So he came in kind of like the emo dress, like one would look kind of like that. However, he also had like a black cloak and he had fake fangs every single day. And, that's kind of funny. Like, whatever, it doesn't really matter. If you're like a normal dude and you like do that, like, I mean, okay, you're probably not super normal if you do that, but let's say you act normal, but you just have that on, like, who really cares? But if you act like you're actually a 16th century vampire, might be some problems, maybe a few here and there. But anyways, Alex and his friends were sitting behind the emo vampire kid. And they just like they normally didn't sit behind him because you know how like in classes you have assigned seats. It's like, oh, you always sit there every day, so you kind of just assume that everyone else doesn't sit there because they're sitting where their assigned seat is. Well, one day, about a third of the way through the year, right, the kids, there was a bunch of kids sitting in the spots that Alex and his friends used to sit in, which was kind of middle of the front row, right? So they're looking around and they're like, okay, there's like a seat like in the way front, and we're not necessarily trying to do that, or kind of farther in the back behind that one kid that's kind of weird. Alex and his friends kind of decide that, they want to sit back there. Like, it's not like they're sitting in the same row as the emo vampire kid. They're just sitting one row behind him, so that shouldn't really be an issue. And the emo vampire kid got the entire row to himself, partially because I think people were scared, but also partially because his cloak like was flowing onto the two seats next to him. So if someone was to sit, they'd have to be like, hey, can I move your cloak? I just don't think people are trying to like come up with that sentence, right? So Alex and his friends, they sit behind the emo vampire kid, and class begins, and they're all like kind of paying attention. But when you sit in the back and when you're with your friends, you can only have so much attention, right? You can only pay so close of attention. And they were kind of sitting there and talking, and all of a sudden, the emo vampire kid turns around, does like a full 180, and just is glaring directly at Alex. And Alex, in the middle of a sentence, just kind of like stops talking and just kind of like looks at the emo vampire kid, and kind of just looks at the kid. They're just kind of having a staring contest at this point, and Alex is really uncomfortable because this is not normal. The simulation did not prepare us for this, it's, what? Yeah, anyways, right, so the emo vampire kid, he's just staring at him, and then he hisses at him, and, like, shows his fangs, he's like, and, like, shows his fangs off or something, and Alex and his friends it's funny, but they don't even laugh. They're a little bit too scared to laugh right now. Not that, like, this kid's actually a vampire, but, it's just so unpredictable what he's going to do. I mean, you can read the title. I'm assuming you can read, which I'm not convinced everyone who watches my videos can read. But that's for another story. But for those of you who can, have graduated past preschool, which I'm not sure all of you guys have, but you can probably read the title, and yeah, it says that there's an emo vampire kid that bit someone. So obviously this kid's up to no good, but Alex doesn't assume that, this kid's gonna, bite them or something. So here's where the real trouble comes. You might be thinking, well, this hasn't been the real trouble. No, it gets worse. It's not great. So, the next day, so for about like a week, the emo vampire kid continuously like turns around midway through class and will stare at either Alex or one of his two friends. And it's just really weird. And they're kind of just like, okay, this is really strange. And they were considering sitting in the front of the room, right? So midway through class, Alex gets up because he has to go to the bathroom. And the emo vampire kid sees this. So Alex gets up, he walks past his desk, and immediately Alex feels himself falling and hitting the ground. Alex, a little embarrassed, gets up quickly and like goes to the bathroom. And when he comes back, Alex sits down and his friend's like, dude, I can't believe that kid tripped you. And Alex is like, what? And they're like, yeah, like as you're walking, like the emo vampire kid. I just love that name, emo vampire. The emo vampire kid stuck his leg out and tripped you, dude. And Alex is like, what? And the emo vampire kid turns around and like laughs or whatever. It's like, like just some really cringe laugh. Or I don't even know, but he's chuckling. I don't know, man. I've never heard someone actually say chuckling. I'm just going to say it. Like, I know it's a word, but no one says that. But yeah, so anyways, emo vampire kid is just like turns back around. And Alex is getting kind of mad because, he ate dirt, let's say that, in front of everyone, man. And that's not necessarily something you want to... It's embarrassing. I mean, I don't know what grade they're in. I don't think that they were in high school, but they also weren't, like, toddlers at this point, so they were probably, like, late middle school or something like that. But, yeah, I mean, that's still pretty embarrassing. So, on the bell rings, they get up, and the emo kid must have been super confident, because the emo kid stuck their leg out again as to trip Alex again. But obviously Alex was a bit more aware, and the emo kid did not time their leg extension correctly. So the leg like shoots. Imagine you're like walking past someone and you're about to walk near them and their leg shoots out. Like, is that really about to trip you? No. And Alex looks at the emo kid, and the emo kid is laughing and smiling, is like, whatever. And Alex is like, dude, you're weird, and just so you know, vampires don't even exist. And he kind of said that as kind of like he didn't have a good... because Alex was mad, and he really didn't have a good comeback at the tip of his head. He couldn't come up with one. So when he said, like, vampires don't even exist, in his head, he's like, damn, Alex, like, you can't roast for your own life, man. Like, come on now. Like, that was the worst roast ever. But then Alex kind of makes eye contact with the emo vampire virgin, whatever, right? No, emo vampire kid, sorry. And the emo vampire kid was very clearly disturbed by such an accusation that vampires aren't real. How dare you? So the vampire kid looks at him, and he gets all serious. And Alex is like, in his head, he's like, I guess that did work then. Okay, that's nice. And the vampire kid's like, I'm going to give you to the count of 3. And if you don't take that back, your life will never be the same. Alex in his head was like, okay, like, I don't know what this kid's capable of. Like, he's really weird, so I know he's capable of being weird. But no, I'm not going to take it back. That's ridiculous, right? I'm not going to, submit to this kid because I said vampires aren't real and that, hurt his feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings, guys. No, but, he's like, no, I'm just not going to do that. So he looks at him, and they basically just have a staring contest. And the emo kid's like, 1. It's always so awkward to me when there's, like, a countdown, and you know that the person that the countdown's being levied against just isn't going to do anything. Like, it's like 3, 2, and you just know that, like, the long stretched out countdown is just a countdown to nothing. But anyways, he's kind of just like looking at him with his blank stare. And the emo kid's like, 2, 3. He's like, 3.0. And Alex is looking at him like, dude, that's not different from 3, man. And he's like, fine, then you've chosen to ruin your life. And the emo vampire kid, quickly gets up and grabs his stuff and runs out of the class, and his like cape flutters behind him as he's running back or whatever. And Alex just kind of looks at his friend. His friend looks back at him. And then Alex looks at his friend again. His friend just looks back at him. And then they look at each other. Then they look at the third friend. And then the third friend looks at both of them. And then they all look at each other. And they're like, damn. That was something, man. So anyways, it gets more interesting the next day. Because the emo kid doesn't show up to class. Right away, at least. He shows up a little later. And, they sit down, and after, 5 minutes, they're like, oh, word. This kid isn't in class. That's good. I don't want to, we don't have to deal with him. So Alex and his friends were actually, they were chilling. They're having a pretty good time. And, so anyways, him and his friends were just, waiting, and, the emo vampire kid...
Hi, Connor.
Hi, Connor.
Hi, Connor.
How'd they get in? I thought I locked the door. No. All right, just a little distraction. I had to fight off these, these intruders, a.k.a. stalker fans, with my 2 bare fists. But yeah, I fought them both off. 2v1, absolutely destroyed them both. I'm just significantly better than both of them in street combat, so they didn't stand a chance. But anyways, back to the story. So they're waiting for the, the emo vampire kid to come in, and he doesn't. So they're like, oh, word. So we're actually going to have an okay class period for once, right? This is going to be okay. And that's where it's no longer true. It gets worse. It unfortunately gets worse from here, right? So they're waiting, and they're just chilling in class, and they're having a good time. And that's when they see the door creak open a little bit. And nobody notices this except Alex, apparently. Alex looks at the door, and he sees, someone looking in. It opens the door just so slightly, he sees eyes looking at him. And he immediately recognizes, oh my God, that's the emo vampire kid. And it wouldn't be weird, because kids are sometimes late to class. The teacher's not happy, but it happens. I don't know. But the kid wasn't coming in. He was just looking into the classroom. And he wasn't just looking into the classroom. He was looking at Alex specifically. So Alex is like, hell nah, bro. This is too weird for me. So Alex breaks eye contact. He looks back down. He's like, okay, whatever. He's like, okay, at least it's going to stop here. It's not going to get any weirder. And that's when he hears the door fling open and the emo vampire kid sprint into class with his arms behind him, Naruto running style, and his cape is flying all around or whatever. And he just is runs in screaming. The whole class stops what they're doing because it's pretty hard to ignore this, one would say. And the kid runs in and jumps on Alex's leg and literally chomps into his leg. And Alex is kind of lets out, I think, a scream or whatever. The teacher, in a lot of these stories, the teachers are too stunned to act right away. But this teacher was fast. He was on top of it like that. The teacher ran over, grabbed the emo vampire kid, kind of ripped him off Alex. Alex immediately grabbed his leg, looked at it. There was these weird bite marks. When someone bites your arm, because that happens all the time. And it kind of leaves indentations, but those indentations are going to go away in 5 minutes. And as long as it doesn't break the skin, you're pretty good. You're pretty safe. The teacher still said teacher's did he break the skin? Are you bleeding? Alex said no. And the teacher's well, you should probably just go to the nurse's office, just make sure it's checked up. And he's real quick, do you know why this happened? And, Alex is no. And the emo kid's lies, And the teacher looks at Alex, and Alex is oh, well, I mean, I did say, vampires aren't real. Yeah, I mean, if that caused this, then... And the teacher looks down the emo vampire kid, and the emo vampire kid is hissing at Alex. And Alex is just looking at him back okay. And the teacher's all right, Alex, go to the nurse's office. I'm going to deal with this. Everyone else in class, open up to chapter 6, take notes. By the time I'm back, I'm going to quiz you guys on what's going on. Don't be slacking off or anything. This is still we're still in class or whatever, and leaves. I mean, I think the teacher just wasn't having it today, and I can understand. So Alex goes to the nurse's office, and yeah, he's fine. It's kind of whatever. And turns out, the emo vampire kid was asked to move classes. He was in a different section. just because they thought it wouldn't be good to have Alex and him in the same section. And why punish Alex by mixing up his schedule because he was bitten? That he seems like the victim in this sense. Anyways, next story is about a school bus driver who tries to fight a kid. It's a very, very interesting story. You should stick around. We're going to call the subscriber. I didn't give him a name on my list. I have a little list of stuff. We're going to call him Daniel. Okay, that's a good name. I don't know if you could hear my keyboard clicks, but Daniel. So anyways, Daniel was on the bus, and he was like, he observed this whole thing go down. In the very front of the bus, there was this annoying kid. I mean, he was kind of annoying. He was, you know how there's like, I don't know if you guys have this in your grade, if you're still in school, because only Stanford PhDs watch the Connor Pugs YouTube channel, not, yeah. But anyways, like, I don't know if you guys have had this kid in your class, or back in the day when you were in like middle school or something. But there's like that one kid who is like nice, I guess, and kind of, but he's really, really out there. And it's good to be out there, but he's like really out there in the sense that like everything's about attention, everything is crazy, everything is, and he's kind of just known as the annoying kid because he is annoying. Anyways, right, so he brings food on the bus, and it's like the one rule of the bus besides don't unscrew the bus while it's going or set the lighter fluid on fire. The one real rule of the bus was you just can't bring food on the bus. Can't bring food, can't bring drinks. Like, if you have it, it has to be in your backpack, because some kids did bring a lunch to school. You can't take it out. You can't eat it like that because, you know, they allowed that years ago, and the bus was always a mess, and the school driver would have to clean it up, and then there's like rats or roaches or something. He's like, I'm done. I'm not doing that. It's the one rule. It's my bus. We can have at least one rule here. So the the annoying kid. The annoying kid. It's always the insert adjective kid, whatever. So the annoying kid brings food in the bus, and very politely the school bus driver's like, hey, you can't have that. And the annoying kid's like, what? You're not letting me eat food? Dude, it's in the Constitution, man. I can eat food. I swear, like, people say it as a joke, but there are some people that, like, unironically will say, it's in the Constitution, to just something that is just not in the Constitution. And it's like, it's my constitutional right to get Chick-fil-A on Sunday, man. Why are you closed? But anyways, you know, the bus driver very politely is like, sorry, it's the one rule of the bus. And the kid, the annoying kid, actually complies. He puts this, you know, the food away or whatever. The next day on the bus, you know, this kid brings food again. And this time, you know, the school bus driver is a little snappier, like, hey, I told you yesterday you can't be bringing food. You got to put it away. So, you know, he puts it away. And, you know, the annoying kid, like, kind of sneaks some snacks or whatever, sneaks some bites or something. And, you know, maybe if this kid wasn't getting breakfast, maybe, I don't know. There might be a reason, but he was also, the annoying kid was being pretty annoying about it, so it's hard to feel too sympathetic. On the third day, the kid took out this, like, candy bar, unwrapped it, and took a bite into it. And the school bus driver, because this was, like, before, like, they even were going, like, if you're going to eat on the bus and you really can't, first of all, don't go basically in the front row, don't have the aisle seat, and don't eat it while the bus driver is taking attendance watching you guys walk in. Like, that's the dumbest thing ever. Sit in the back, kind of like crouch down, and while they're driving, they're not going to know, okay, unless someone tells on you. But anyways, like, he's eating, and the bus driver comes over and takes the candy bar, and is like, I've told you 3 times already, I'm sorry, like, this is the final strike, I'm confiscating this. And the annoying kid was not having this at all. He was so angry. He was like fighting back. He wasn't physically fighting back, but he's like, you can't take that away from me. You're stealing from me. I'm going to report you to this. Right. And the bus driver says, you know, it's actually now, you know, this bus is in, you know, I work for the school, you know, because this was like a private bus that the school contracted out. So maybe he didn't actually work, but it was a school rule because it was like a bus rule, and while they were on the bus, it was like school, whatever. He said, it is a rule, and like, you can report me all you want, but you broke the rule, and like, I'm allowed to confiscate it. Like, that's just part of it. Sorry, bud. And the annoying kid was silent, because he was always talking super loud. He was silent for the rest of the bus ride. The subscriber, Daniel, kind of just thought, because Daniel was like watching all this go down. Daniel kind of just thought that like the kid was embarrassed, but in fact, the kid was not embarrassed. I mean, he probably was. But he was not just embarrassed. He was also plotting his revenge. So the next day comes around, and this is the fateful day where everything goes down. And the kid, once again, brings food. The bus driver, once again, is not very happy about this, which I can understand. I mean, the kid brought food when he shouldn't have. And the bus driver is like, I got to take that away from you again. Like, if you keep doing this, you're not going to be allowed on the bus. And the annoying kid's like, oh, is that true? And what he had in his hand was a big thing of, like, chocolate milk. But it was, like, kind of a stickier, more sludgy, okay, not sludge, but it was a thicker substance. There we go. It was a thicker substance. And, the annoying kid makes direct eye contact with the bus driver and takes off the cap and literally pours the chocolate milk all over the seat. It drips all over, drips on the floor, is like sticking to everything, is falling all over the place. And, the annoying kid is like, well, that's what you get for taking my food. And in the middle of saying that, the bus driver, who does something he probably shouldn't have, just so you know, I don't condone this, but it's a story, I'm just telling it. The bus driver literally slaps this kid across the face. He must have just been having a bad day or week or month or existence. I don't even know. He was just not having it right now. And boom! The entire class, or everyone on the bus, I should say, who was kind of like talking with each other, go dead silent. And of course, the annoying kid or whatever starts like crying because, I don't know, he's in like 5th grade. You can't be doing that to a kid. Just kick them off the bus or punish them. And immediately the bus driver just realizes that he messed up. So the bus driver's like, everyone out, like, and because like this was before they left. And all these kids are like, but I got to get to school. And he says, I don't care. Everyone off now. So the bus driver basically just has a breakdown at this point. And everyone's standing there. One of the kids thankfully has a phone because they were young enough, I think 4th or 5th grade, where most of them didn't have any way to communicate. Thankfully, one of them did, called one of the parents that ended up communicating with all the parents. So all the parents came and picked them up, and the school was informed. And the next day that they got on the bus, there was a totally new bus driver. And I think because of how the bus driver reacted, the annoying kid didn't get in trouble at all, which obviously, being, a jerk and spilling stuff, on the bus driver's bus because, he made you mad. It's a bad thing to do, but it's not as bad as, like, literally slapping a kid. Like, that's terrible. So, yeah, they never saw that bus driver again, and I got a feeling he will not be driving that many more buses in his future.